I died last night. It wasn't a nightmare. In nightmares, there are monsters, or you're falling, or you're naked in high school. This was boring. It was administrative. I simply stopped. I felt the lights go out in the house of my body. I felt the silence that comes after the last breath. It was absolute. It was final. And it felt more real than the bed I am sitting on right now. Then the alarm went off. 6:30 a.m. I opened my eyes. The ceiling fan was spinning. The cat was scratching at the door. The world was exactly as I left it. But I am not. I got up and engaged the autopilot. But today the autopilot feels different. It doesn't feel like efficiency. It feels like a farce. It feels like I am operating a puppet made of meat and bone. I walked to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. I squeezed toothpaste onto the brush. And a thought hit me so hard, I almost dropped the brush. Why am I maintaining this object? Why am I polishing the teeth of a future corpse? This is the absurdity of the autopilot. We live our lives based on the assumption of permanence. We act as if we have forever. We save money for 30 years from now. We worry about cholesterol. We buy extended warranties. We build these elaborate, complex structures of future, ignoring the biological reality that the switch could flip at any second. I put on my clothes, a button-down shirt, slacks. Why these clothes? Who decided this is the costume for a serious adult? It suddenly looked hilarious to me. I am wrapping fabric around my dying body to impress other dying bodies in a concrete box we call an office. I drove to work. I looked at the other cars on the highway. Hundreds of us. Metal boxes hurtling at 70 miles per hour. And I saw us for what we are. Ghosts in the machine. We are all suspended in this state of denial. We are all pretending that the destination matters more than the drive. Usually I am part of the rush. I check my emails at red lights. I listen to the news to stay informed. But today the news sounds like gibberish. The stock market is up. The celebrity scandal is trending. Who cares? I feel like an alien who has just been dropped into a human body and handed a manual written in a language I don't speak. Everyone else knows the steps to the dance. They are angry about the traffic. They are stressed about the quarterly review. They are engaged. I am just watching. I am walking through the valley of the shadow of death, and I am the only one who seems to notice that we are walking in it. The autopilot is usually a way to get things done without thinking. But today I realize the autopilot is actually a shield. It protects us from the terror of our own mortality. If we stay busy enough, if we move fast enough, if we keep our calendars full enough, maybe we can trick the universe into forgetting to kill us. I've remembered the end. And now, looking at the beginning of my day, none of the math adds up. How many of you are sleepwalking right now? If you really knew, that the credits were going to roll tonight, would you still be sitting in this traffic? Would you still be worrying about that email? The glitch happened at 10:15 a.m., the all-hands emergency meeting. My boss stood at the head of the table. His face was red, veins were bulging in his neck. He was pacing back and forth like a general in a war room. And the war, a typo, a spelling error in the subject line of the Q3 newsletter. "This is unacceptable," he shouted. "This compromises our brand integrity. Do you understand the gravity of this situation?" Gravity. That was the word that triggered the glitch. Yesterday, I would have been nodding. I would have been sweating. I would have been performing concern. I would have said, "I'll fix it right away, sir." But today, I looked at him. I didn't see a vice president of strategy. I saw a mammal, a hairless primate in a polyester suit, screaming about pixels on a screen, while his cells were slowly aging, dividing, and dying. I saw the skeleton underneath his skin, and I started to laugh. It wasn't a loud laugh. It was a small, involuntary exhale through my nose. The room went silent. The air left the room. My boss stopped pacing. He looked at me with eyes wide with shock. "Is something funny?" he asked. This was the moment to save myself. The script says, "No, sorry, just a cough." But I couldn't read the script. The memory of the void, the memory of that absolute silence I felt this morning, was too loud. I looked at him and I said, "It's just an email, Mark. We're on a floating rock in infinite space. Nobody is going to remember this in a week. Why are we shouting?" That was the glitch. I had broken the fourth wall. I had pointed out the camera crews. I had admitted that the Emperor was naked. And not only was he naked, but he was also mortal. The silence that followed was heavy. It wasn't just awkwardness, it was fear. By refusing to panic about the typo, I had insulted their religion. Their religion is importance. They need this email to be life or death. Because if it's not, then what have they been doing with their lives for the last 10 years? If the typo doesn't matter, then the stress doesn't matter. And if the stress doesn't matter, then their suffering is for nothing. I was sent out of the room. "Take a walk," Mark said, his voice shaking. "You seem unwell." I walked out into the hallway. The carpet was gray, the walls were gray, and a terrifying thought settled in my chest. It wasn't I might get fired. That fear was gone. The thought was, I can never go back. I can never unsee the smallness of this world. I can never again pretend that a quarterly review is a matter of survival. The illusion has shattered. I am walking among people who are playing a game that I no longer know the rules to. They think I'm having a breakdown, but it feels like the opposite. It feels like I'm the only one who has finally woken up. But if I'm awake, why does it feel so incredibly lonely? The glitch isn't that I laughed. The glitch is that I realized I am trapped in a room where everyone is screaming about nothing, and I have lost the ability to scream with them. I sat in my car for an hour after the meeting. I didn't turn on the engine. I just sat there and looked at my phone. I opened my notes app. I have a folder titled The Plan. It's a detailed roadmap of the next 10 years of my life. Move to a bigger house by 35. Director level by 38. A trip to Italy in 2027. Pay off the mortgage by 45. I looked at this list and I felt a wave of nausea. Not because the goals are bad, but because they were written by a stranger. They were written by a version of me who believed in later. This is the dissonance. It is the violent separation between the me who built this life and the me who woke up this morning. The old me cared about status. He cared about legacy. He cared about accumulating things to put in the house to impress the neighbors. He was playing the long game. The new me knows that the game could end before I finish this sentence. The worst part isn't the work. The worst part is the love. I texted my partner, "Hey, just one word." When they replied, "Hey, did you pick up the dry cleaning?" I felt like a liar. I'm lying to the people I love. Not with words, but with my presence. I'm pretending to be the person they married, the ambitious, steady, future-oriented partner. But I'm not him anymore. I'm a ghost haunting his life. I look at them worrying about the grocery budget or the leak in the roof, and I want to shake them. I want to scream. None of this matters. Look at the sky. Look at your hands. We are dying. Why are we talking about dry cleaning? But I can't, because that would break the spell. That would destroy their autopilot. And who am I to wake them up? Who am I to ruin their illusion of safety? So I play along. I'm an imposter in my own marriage. I nod about the dry cleaning. I feign interest in the kitchen renovation. But inside I am screaming. I am grieving them, while they are standing right in front of me. It makes you feel crazy. You start to wonder, Am I enlightened? Or am I just depressed? Is this wisdom, seeing the futility of it all? Or have I just broken the mechanism that allows humans to function? We need the illusion of permanence to get out of bed. We need to believe that 2030 is a real place that we will visit. Without that illusion, I am just drifting. I have no anchor. I have success. I have money. I have love. And it all feels like sand slipping through my fingers. I'm holding on to everything, feeling nothing but the weight of the loss that is coming. I feel like I'm watching a movie of my life, but I've already seen the ending, so I can't enjoy the plot twists anymore. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever looked at your 5-year plan and realized it was just a fairy tale you told yourself to keep the fear of the dark away? I tried to find a cure for my condition. I went to the Temple of Denial, or, as you might call it, the drugstore. I walked down aisle 7. Anti-aging, defy gravity. Stop time. Look at the language we use. We are at war with our own biology. We don't treat aging as a natural process. We treat it as a disease. We treat it as a failure of character. If you look old, it means you didn't try hard enough. You didn't drink the collagen. You didn't do the cold plunge. This is the great gaslight of the modern world. Society looks us in the eye and says, death is optional. If you are rich enough, smart enough, and disciplined enough, you can opt out. I went to see a therapist today. I told him I can't stop thinking about the fact that I am going to die. I can't stop seeing the skull beneath the skin. Do you know what he did? He didn't say, yes. That is the fundamental tragedy of the human condition. Let's explore that. No. He reached for his prescription pad. He said, it sounds like you have generalized anxiety. We can numb that for you. He wanted to medicate my reality. The world is terrified of a person who remembers they are mortal. Because if you remember you are dying, you become a very bad consumer. Think about it. The entire economy relies on the assumption of forever. Why do we take out 30-year mortgages? Because we think we have 30 years. Why do we care about legacy? Because we think our name matters more than our breath. Why do we tolerate miserable jobs? Because we think we are building a future. If everyone woke up tomorrow and realized, wait, I might not be here next Tuesday, the economy would collapse, the stock market would crash. Nobody would buy the anti-wrinkle cream. Nobody would care about the quarterly report. We would all just go home and hug our kids and watch the sunset. So the system has to gaslight us. It has to hide the bodies. Have you noticed how we hide death? We put it in sterilized buildings at the edge of town. We paint the faces of the dead to make them look asleep. We use euphemisms. Passed away, departed, lost. We are like children covering our eyes and shouting, if I can't see it, it's not real. But I can see it now. And the gaslighting doesn't work on me anymore. I see the billboards for life insurance, and I don't see security. I see attacks on our fear. I see the tech billionaires trying to upload their brains to the cloud, and I don't see innovation. I see terrified little boys running away from the dark. They tell me I'm depressed. They tell me I'm morbid. They tell me I need to focus on the positive. But focusing on the positive when you are standing on a sinking ship isn't healthy. It's delusional. The world keeps screaming at me to look at the screen, look at the product, look at the future. Look anywhere but at the exit door. But once you know where the exit is, you can't stop glancing at it. And you start to realize that maybe the house is already on fire. The collapse happened on a Saturday night at a birthday party. We were all gathered around a table. A cake was brought out. Candles were flickering. Little sticks of wax counting down the time we have left. Everyone started singing, "Happy birthday to you." I looked at the faces around the table. My friends, my tribe. They looked so happy. They were clapping. They were taking photos. And suddenly, The room started to tilt. The sound of their voices warped. It didn't sound like a celebration. It sounded like a chant. It sounded like they were whistling past a graveyard. I looked at the birthday girl. She was laughing, blowing out the candles, and I didn't see her face. I saw a skull smiling. I tried to sing. I tried to join the ritual. Just move your lips, I told myself. Just pretend. But my throat closed up. It felt like I was choking on the LI. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt thick, like we were all underwater. I realized with a terrifying jolt that I was the only one in the room who knew the building was burning down. I dropped my drink. It shattered. But nobody heard it over the applause. I turned and ran. I didn't walk away coolly like I did at the office. I fled. I pushed past the bodies, past the balloons, past the congratulations. I locked myself in the bathroom and collapsed against the door. This isn't burnout from working too hard. This is ontological exhaustion. It is the sheer crushing weight of trying to exist in two realities at once. Reality A, this party matters. This cake matters. My job matters. Reality B, we are dust in the wind and we are vanishing. Holding those two opposing thoughts in your head at the same time tears your mind apart. It shreds your nervous system. I sat on those cold tiles gasping for air, and I realized I couldn't go back out there. I couldn't go back to the small talk. I couldn't ask someone, "So what do you do for a living?" I wanted to scream. Who cares what we do? We are dying. Why aren't we holding each other and weeping? Why aren't we staring at the stars? Why are we eating cake and pretending this is forever? I felt like I was dissolving. My name, my history, my ego. It all felt like a costume I had dropped on the floor. We spend our whole lives building a fortress to keep the fear of death out. We build it with money, with status, with distraction. But once the walls crumble, you are naked, and it is the most terrifying, lonely feeling in the world. To be alive, but to feel like you have already left. There is someone watching this who feels this specific kind of loneliness. You are surrounded by people, but you feel like you are watching them from behind a glass wall. You feel the weight of time pressing down on your chest while everyone else is floating. It's heavy. God, it is so heavy to carry this awareness alone. If you have ever felt that crushing weight, the weight of simply existing in a world that refuses to acknowledge the end, please hit the like button, not because it's content, but to let me know that I'm not the only ghost in this room. The morning after the panic attack, I woke up expecting to feel fear again. But I didn't. I felt permission. For years, I had been hoarding my life like a miser hoarding gold. I was saving my joy, saving my relaxation, saving my real life for some hypothetical future date when I would finally be ready. But the panic attack taught me the truth. There is no bank. You can't save time. You can only spend it. And I had been spending mine on things that made me miserable. So the rebellion began. It wasn't a noisy revolution. I didn't burn down the office. I simply slowed down. I initiated a radical deceleration. It started at work. My manager came to me with a 5-year development plan. He was excited. He talked about trajectories, equity vesting, and legacy. I looked at the plan. It was a roadmap for a person I might never become, in a future that might never arrive. I slid the paper back to him and said, "I'm not interested in 5 years from now. I'm interested in doing good work today. Can we focus on that?" He looked confused. In the corporate world, refusing to look at the horizon is heresy. But I didn't care. I stopped attending meetings that could have been emails. I stopped networking with people I didn't like. I stopped trading my actual Tuesday for a theoretical promotion. Then the rebellion moved to my personal life. I stopped optimizing my weekends. I I stopped listening to audiobooks at 2x speed to learn faster. Learn for what? To be the smartest corpse in the cemetery. Instead, I started doing something scandalous. I started wasting time. I spent an hour watching a spider weave a web. I sat in a coffee shop and didn't bring my phone. I just drank the coffee. I tasted the roast. I felt the ceramic mug. I played with my dog not to tire him out, but just to look into his eyes and marvel at the fact that we are two different species communicating across the void. The world screams at us, "Hurry up! You're falling behind." But my mortality whispered, "Slow down. You're missing it." The rebellion is realizing that efficiency is the enemy of being. You cannot be efficient with a sunset. You cannot be efficient with a conversation with your mother. You cannot be efficient with a kiss. If you try to rush these things, you destroy them. So I became a conscientious objector to the cult of urgency. When everyone else runs, I walk. When everyone else scrolls, I stare. I used to be terrified that my life was slipping away. Now I am finally grabbing hold of it. Not by doing more, but by feeling more. But here is the strange thing about slowing down. When you stop moving at the speed of the blur, you start to see things that were hidden in plain sight. You start to see the strings that are pulling everyone else. And once you see the strings, you have to cut them. We have been told a lie our entire lives. We have been told that death is the thief, that death is the monster that comes to steal our joy, our time, our loved ones. But that isn't true. Denial is the thief. Thinking you have forever is the thief. When you think you have endless time, you treat your days like cheap plastic. You waste them on arguments. You waste them on jobs you hate. You waste them scrolling through the lives of strangers. You procrastinate your dreams because you think there is always a tomorrow. But when you remember, really remember, that the clock is ticking, suddenly, every single second becomes a diamond. This is the paradox of mortality. The limit is what creates the value. Why is gold valuable? Because it is rare. Why is a sunset beautiful? Because it doesn't last. If the sun stayed in the sky forever, we wouldn't even look at it. We would take it for granted, just like we take our lives for granted. My glitch didn't take my life away. It gave it back to me. I realized that we are not residents of this planet. We are tourists. We are on a brief, terrifying, beautiful vacation. And like any vacation, the point isn't to buy the hotel. The point is to swim in the ocean. The point is to eat the food. The point is to be present before you have to pack your bags. We are so busy trying to build legacies, stone monuments that will eventually turn to sand, and that we forget to build memories. We forget to look at the faces of the people we love and memorize the lines around their eyes. You are not a machine designed to work until you break. You are a biological miracle that gets to experience consciousness for a blink of an eye in cosmic time. To be afraid of death is natural, but to be afraid of life, that is the tragedy. Most of us are already dead. We died the moment we traded our curiosity for security. We died the moment we let the opinions of others dictate our choices. We are walking corpses in nice suits, waiting for the official certificate to catch up. I am done being a corpse. I would rather live a short life that is wide and deep than a long life that is narrow and empty. I would rather feel the sharp pain of eventually losing it all than the dull ache of never having had it. I want to ask you a question, and I don't want the safe answer. I want the answer that scares you a little. If you knew, with 100% certainty, that you had exactly 1 year left to live, what is the first thing you would change about your life today? Would you quit that job? Would you forgive that person? Would you finally write that book? Don't wait for the diagnosis. Don't wait for the tragedy. The diagnosis is already here. You are human. Tell me your truth in the comments. Let's see what really matters when the clock starts ticking. I woke up this morning at 6:30 a.m. again. The cat was still scratching at the door. The traffic was still backed up on the highway. The world hasn't changed. The simulation didn't reset. But I have changed. I used to look at this routine as a prison sentence. Now I look at it as a privilege. I poured my coffee and I didn't just drink it to wake up. I tasted it. I felt the warmth spreading in my chest. I looked at the steam rising in the sunlight, twisting and disappearing, and I thought, that's me. I am the steam. And instead of terrifying me, it made me smile. This is the real normal. It's not about quitting your job to live in a cave. It's about bringing the awareness of death into the center of your life, right here in the middle of the suburbs. I still go to work, but I don't play the politics game anymore. I do my work with care, but without attachment. I see my co-workers not as competitors, but as fellow travelers stuck on the same ride. When my boss yells, I don't feel fear. I feel compassion. I think he doesn't know. He still thinks he has forever. I still have bills to pay. But I don't stress about the numbers on the screen like I used to. Money is a tool for the living, not a scorecard for the dead. I have replaced ambition with presence. Ambition asks, what's next? Presence asks, what's this? And this messy, boring, chaotic, beautiful moment is enough. It has to be enough, because it's the only thing we actually have. Living with the memory of death is like wearing a pair of glasses that makes everything sharper. The colors are brighter, the jokes are funnier, the sadness is deeper. I am not afraid of the end anymore. The end is just the punctuation mark that gives the sentence meaning. Without the period, the sentence would just ramble on, forever making no sense. The period makes it a story. And I intend to make my story a good one. Not a successful one. A good one. One full of mistakes, and love and chocolate and long walks and deep sleep. If you are tired of sleepwalking, if you are tired of living for a someday that never comes, then welcome home. This channel is for the awake. It's for the people who want to squeeze every drop of juice out of this lemon before time runs out. If you're ready to start living like you actually mean it, click that subscribe button. If you're feeling paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice with the time you have left, I made a video about that. It's called The Myth of the Wrong Choice. It's right here. Go watch it. Don't wait. You know, time is ticking.